Let's bring in House Speaker Mike Johnson and House Republican Conference Chairwoman Elise Stefanik. Thank you both for being here.
Good morning.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for coming.
We'd love to cover a range of topics, but let's start what happened on the floor yesterday. The vote on George Santos. First of all, was that a vote you could control, meaning whether it came to the floor or not? And both of you voted against expelling him. What do you make of the outcome?
Yeah, we couldn't block it. It was a privilege resolution, which means it gets to come to the floor within 2 days of filing. And it was a regrettable day. You know, prior to yesterday, only 5 people had ever been expelled from Congress. 3 were Confederates, 2 were convicted of federal charges. And George Santos has not been convicted in a court. You know, our party believes in the rule of law and due process, and we're deeply concerned about preserving those things. And, you know, maybe he will be convicted by a jury of his peers, but that hadn't happened yet, and that's why we had reservations about it.
I know that both of you did not vote to expel Santos. To the best of your knowledge and understanding your colleagues on the Republican side of the aisle, why? Why did so many vote to oust Santos in violation of historical precedent and seemingly due process, and, by the way, equal application to others who have accusations and charges in some cases against them, but not convictions?
You know, I think many of our colleagues looked at the Ethics Committee report and had concerns that this is not befitting of a member of Congress. Again, my concern was that the lack of due process, and it's a very slippery slope when this type of precedent is set. However, the House worked its will. We are committed to making sure that we hold this seat. The special election will likely be in February or March. And, Will, it's important to remember, when we had local elections, we saw a red wave on Long Island at the local level. So we're very optimistic that we will have a strong candidate to join our Republican majority in February or March.
So, Speaker, you couldn't stop this vote. It was what we call a privilege resolution. But you're the new Speaker. I know you probably don't like that you have less of a majority now. You're going to have 3 seats, right? So why couldn't you, even just as a team leader, I'm not trying to dump on you, but I mean, you're the captain, to go, come on, team, we need that extra vote. And all the reasons that you gave before, but if not just for the sheer raw politics, because they don't care about it on the other side. They've got Eric Swalwell, who's, you know, slept with Chinese spies, and they have, you know, Menendez in the Senate with gold bars in his closet.
Yeah, a lot of the members felt very passionate about this when we allowed them to have a vote of conscience. I felt like that was important. There were some members on the other side making a rule of law argument in favor of expelling, because they said what was different about Santos is he was alleged to have committed crimes against the institution itself, and that's why they felt like this made it a different thing. We had very impassioned views on both sides of that, and you know, we let our views be known to the members, but we allowed them to do what they did. You're right, we're down to a 3-vote margin. It's a difficult thing to govern under those circumstances, but we're optimistic about where we're headed. This team is together. We're pulling together. We've got big things ahead of us, but I'm bullish on the future of this.
All right, let's get to another topic that will require holding the entire Republican conference together as well, and that would be the concept of actually formally declaring an impeachment inquiry.
Yes.
Thus far, it has been just that, an inquiry. Based on what's been found, do you, as the Speaker, with that power, plan on bringing an actual vote on impeachment?
It's become a necessary step. Elise and I both served on the impeachment defense team of Donald Trump twice when the Democrats used it for brazen partisan political purposes. We decried that use of it. This is very different. Remember, we are the rule of law team. We have to do it very methodically. Our 3 committees of jurisdiction, Judiciary, Oversight, Ways and Means, have been doing an extraordinary job following the evidence where it leads, but now we're being stonewalled by the White House because they're preventing at least 2 to 3 DOJ witnesses from coming forward, a former White House counsel. The National Archives, the White House has withheld thousands of pages of evidence, so a formal impeachment inquiry vote on the floor will allow us to take it to the next necessary step, and I think it's something we have to do at this juncture.
Congresswoman, help me understand something about the impeachment process and the proposal to depose Hunter Biden. I think it's something that the American people would love to see happen, and actually love to see take place. That's what Hunter Biden says he wants as well, to have this take place open and in the public. But there is some desire among Republicans to at least start the process behind closed doors. Why?
It is important to get a deposition. A deposition is very different than an open hearing. For the viewers across America, an open hearing is 5 minutes on the Democrat side, 5 minutes on the Republican side. It becomes a very public press opportunity for the Democrats to politicize. We want to go at this from a legal and factual perspective, and the only way to get that is through a deposition. And I will remind you, Will, this is what Democrats said when they refused to allow just an open hearing. When they made their argument, they want a deposition. So now they're trying to make the counter argument, but they are on record saying that witness should have a deposition. So it is unacceptable that Hunter Biden's attorney said he just wants to do an open hearing. The only correct response to the subpoena is a deposition.
That's a really good thing. I'm glad you explained that to us. Trey Gowdy's talked about that in an open hearing, it can turn into a publicity event for every single individual congressman or congresswoman from either side. You want this to go like a prosecution. You want the ability to cross-examine.
And Will, it's the precedent, remember, for the J6 committee investigations, for the impeachments of Donald Trump. Every investigation of Congress in the modern era, the deposition has come first and the public testimony follows. Why would we break that precedent now?
I'm really grateful to you for having, promised to continue to release those J6 tapes. Some of the tapes that have come out seem to exonerate some of the, people who are languishing in jail or being persecuted, frankly, by the FBI. What will happen now? These tapes are out. Some of this is contradicting what that committee, that very biased committee, had said. They didn't want to see all the evidence. So then what? What about those people who were just exercising their rights and are now being pursued by the FBI?
Yeah, it's a great point. Listen, the reason we released those tapes is because the American people deserve to know the truth. We're for transparency, and Democrats ran around with their hair on fire screaming that this would be the end of the republic. It's the exact opposite. We can trust the American people with the facts, let them draw their own conclusions. I think some of those people have been denied due process, and we're exploring avenues on that to assist. There's also a number of members that now want to investigate the J6 committee itself for how they might have hidden some of this. We'll see. We're working through all that methodically. I think at the end of the day, the idea is to get the facts to the people and let them decide, and not have partisan politicians trying to present, their version of things that happened. That doesn't serve the country.
And I want to say the Republican conference, the Republican members are very proud of the speaker who released the tapes in the first few weeks of his speakership.
Amen to that. I was very impressed with that as well.
Well, we've got a few more questions for you. Would you stick around
while
we pay some bills here?
Sure.
Okay. All right, Speaker Johnson and GOP Conference Chair Stefanik are sticking with us. Don't move a muscle. We'll be back. We are back with House Speaker Mike Johnson and House Republican Conference Chairwoman Elise Stefanik, and I wish you were privileged to the conversation in the break, but we'll try to recreate some of it. I mentioned impeachment, but that requires votes, and we mentioned that with Santos out, you have an even tighter margin. Do you have the votes to actually formally start an impeachment process?
Yeah, I believe we will. I suspect no Democrats will assist in this effort, but they should. The facts are so clear for everyone to see. Just a couple of numbers to remember, just real quick off the top. 15 million. We know that the Biden family received at least $15 million from foreign nationals and foreign companies. That includes from Ukraine, Russia, China, just between 2014 and 2019. 16 times, at least on the record, Joe Biden has lied about his involvement in the family's business dealings, Hunter Biden's business dealings. We know 22 times, at least 22 times, the president met with or talked with Hunter's foreign business associates. And we have checks. We have checks written to Joe Biden that the Oversight Committee has found in the banking records. $40,000 from China, $200,000 from a now bankrupt healthcare company that his brother James Biden apparently swindled. The evidence is so clear you cannot look away. And the Constitution requires the House to follow the truth where it leads. We have a duty to do this. We cannot stop the process.
Yeah, and we've said you guys are doing this with no help from the FBI. The FBI actually trying to thwart you from doing what you're supposed to do. So I really believe you when you say you want to do transparency, and you want to be transparent. You want this conference to act in a transparent way. And yet when it comes to Ukraine funding, I can't think of anything less transparent. We cannot figure out where the money is going. Even in Europe, there are conversations all the time about, leaders of that government buying villas in France and in Greece. This is our money. Why? If you look at the people, they don't really want this war to go on. They want a peace, a peace resolution or some sort of peace agreement to happen and get our money and our attention off of this. Where are you? I think you're for the Ukraine spending. Explain it.
Let me tell you, the plurality of American people now, latest Gallup poll says we're spending too much in Ukraine. The reason they say that is because the White House has completely dropped the ball on this. They've not been able to say what the objective is, what's the end game. Is there oversight over the money? We all have the same concerns. Nobody wants Vladimir Putin to prevail and march through Europe because I don't think he would stop there. Most of us agree. He might try to go to the Balkans next, and our allies over there are nervous for good reason. But we have laid down the line so clear. I did it to the White House. I've told the President, Jake Sullivan, National Security Advisor, as recently as 48 hours ago, we will not be sending money to Ukraine unless we get border policy changes on our own border. Our constituents back home say, why would we help to secure the border of a foreign country
Of course.
when we don't have our own? So we've laid down the law. We passed H.R. 2. House Resolution 2 is our big immigration reform, our border reform bill, and I told Chuck Schumer himself 2 days ago, that is the line. We passed that out of the House. It's been sitting over there on your desk collecting dust. We fix the border before we do anything.
Is that a money thing that you're asking for? Because if you give more money to border, then they're just going to use it to process more people.
H.R. 2 is policy change. It goes back to the policies that we had during the Trump era when we had this thing squeezed down to almost nothing. It's, you know, the Remain in Mexico,
Yes.
It's asylum reform, it's the parole prescriptions, all the things we've all talked about. That's what we have to have. It's not throwing more money to process illegals.
Right.
It's changing and closing the border, and we're demanding it. We're going to die on that hill.
And you're committed to these all being separate funding bills?
They have to be because there's no other way, Will, to ensure stewardship over the funds, to make sure that they're adequately watched and spent. And if you glob it all together like that, you lose control over the policy, and that's why we've been so rigid on this.
When you say die on that hill, does that mean, you know, I know there was a continuing resolution passed that there was some grumbling about, but you're saying when it comes down to a government shutdown and showdown, H.R. 2 is a part of that?
Anytime I meet with Senate colleagues, and I was at the Senate Republican luncheon a couple of days ago, I talked to Chuck Schumer and the Democrats. I talked to Hakeem Jeffries, my counterpart and the minority leader in the House. I said, if I had T-shirts that would print one thing, border, border, border. That's where the Republicans are because that's where the American people are. We have to do that first before we do any of these other things. That's where we stand.
And as you all know, this is not just a southern border issue. This is impacting communities and states across the country. Look at New York. Look at the illegal immigration crisis right here that's impacting northern border states all across this country. Every community is a border community, so our members are unified in understanding how important it is.
It's in Malibu.
Yeah, exactly.
It's unbelievable. You're right.
Congresswoman Stefanik, Speaker Johnson, thank you guys so much for being with us this morning. It's been an enlightening conversation.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for having us.
So great to have you. Come back.
And you're earning all those grades.
Me and you both.
That's exactly right. He's giving it back to me, as he should. More Fox and Friends in a moment.